and the principal. Dear contributor, at close you will find a copy of the 2014 Burlington City High School Commencement Program and a thank you note to the recipient of your scholarship award. I would like to thank you for your continuous support. Your generous scholarship and assistance is greatly appreciated by all students, staff, and parents of the high school and the entire district. We look forward to next year's commencement and working with you to provide encouragement and support for June 2015 and into the future. Sincerely, James Flynn, Principal. Public portion. All those who'd like to speak, please state your name, your address, come up in order, and you have 5 minutes to speak.
If I may sit down up here, I'd like to.
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, I did not appreciate being told to be quiet after Mr. Sunstein asked for help. I was willing to offer him some as to find the audit. Look it up.
I'm sorry, Mr. Zale, I still need your name and.
Michael Zalot, 506 Locust Avenue. I also don't appreciate to be told to move to the back. I don't want to block any of this large crowd that wants to speak today. So when I'm finished, I will vacate the spot here. This board is an elected body, and it's regulated by laws and charter, which is why I will reissue my call for action on some of the following topics. First, the violation of the Code of Ethics by Mr. Sunstein and his continuing attack on his Zalot name, even though he is now treasurer and not a voting board member. The ethics statement of the board states that we will treat all citizens with courtesy, impartiality, fairness, and equality under the law. There's no election going on now, and Mr. Sunstein is not up for election, nor am I. Number two, I've been asking about the docks. They've been sitting in the field for 2 years, although we took the time to look it up and informed the board that the city owns the riparian rights for the formerly curtains pilings out there, which would be very simple to do. And since this is the summertime, it would probably be more advantageous to try to do that now rather than when the winter comes in. Number three, I have put an OPRA request 50 days ago. The OPRA requests are supposed to be answered in 7 days. You asked for a 30-day extension, which I granted since you were new to the board and the new president. It's now gone 20 days past that. I've asked several times. I mentioned it in the advocates page, and we will go from there. At least at the last meeting, I noted that not one motion for forward progress was submitted. There were 4 motions to start the meeting, accept the treasurer's report, have a break, and to close the meeting. I also asked at the last meeting that a vote be taken so that the board members can express their opinions on moving the elections to November, which would allow more than 88 people to represent Burlington City. This is law now, it's been passed, it's with the school board. I showed dates on which the elections of the board, at least 48 different dates in different ones that the board has moved the election in the past. Okay, there's been several grants been looked at. Very happy to see grants coming out of the Island Board, but there has been no discussion on these. As a public body, any actions that the board takes should be brought up in public session. We do have additional information which we have been providing the board for a long time. Jamie unearthed some documentation, and I think this is very important. Maybe you should write this down. That in 1720, the Burlington Island was listed as being 400 acres. How come this is important? It's important because the state is claiming 30 acres was added by their dredging. The state may have put 30 acres worth of dredge on there, but it was on top of already existing acreage. The second thing that I wanted to bring up, and I hope that you'll follow up, right now Hercules is for sale, the company and the property. Hercules still is under obligation from a contract signed a long time ago, which is probably in Mr. Eustavich's files, that they were to remove the pipeline that's on the island. And until they do that, there would be a lien against Hercules' ability to sell the property. And the last thing is that there's still the 3-acre turnaround basin that's on the island, and this is part of the pipe foundry, which also is being sold. It might be to the board's best concerns to examine this and see what they can find out. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think the mic works up there. Yeah, it's working now.
Joe Abate, 192 Glenwood Avenue, Burlington, New Jersey. I'm going to start out with what I started out with last month. I'm going to talk about the sin and not the sinner. And I want to repeat that, in fact, I am not here to insult anybody, but I'm here to talk about ways that things can be a little bit better. Hopefully you're receptive to that. And my comments are in no way directed towards individuals on the board, but towards direction needed in order for the board to make it to their 333rd birthday. And these are facts, these aren't myths. Talk about economics. I didn't hear anybody say today when the insurance is going to be due. The last meeting you weren't sure, and you're going to have a bill for $2,000 or so. That's going to be due. That's the annual premium for the bill, and that would go back to the date that your policy was put into force. Bottom line is you don't have the money. In 4 months, I believe the insurance is due. You don't have the money to pay $2,000. You got a $1,200 attorney bill out there. Your election in April is going to have to cost you $800. So it's money is of concern. And the other thing I got to say, I'm wondering if it was a board decision to move Mr. Zalot, a person with handicap and a cane, from where he was sitting back to any one of the 100 seats that are empty back here. So I don't know if that was discussed with the board or that was a presidential decision, which is a segue into the other thing I'd like to talk about. There was a communication that was going to be provided to the public stating that there was sustainable farming and environmental inventory and use of the island. Was that a presidential decision or was that a discussion? The board also, in my feelings, wasted the time of your grant writer by applying for a grant and not telling them that they had she had a deadline to do it. And then I asked the president or the chairman of the grant committee if he knew anything about a grant application for a farm on the island. He said he never knew anything about that. So, when Mr. Zalot comes to you as an advocate, he's not an adversary. And by the way, diversity is going to make us stronger. Everybody did the same thing. I already would have made one plain pizza back in my day, not ones with pepperoni or mushrooms or food-like spots. So diversity will make you stronger. You should embrace it. You shouldn't kick it away. Last month I was here, raised my hand, offered to help you. Nobody called me. Nobody sent an email, so I guess you got it all under control. But I do have a gift for you before I leave, and I'll leave you guessing on that. But does anybody recognize this publication? I'm just curious who authorized that on the board.
What is it, Joe?
Well, it's signed by Scott Colburn and Mary Sunstein.
What is it?
It says treat the island non-invasively. It's a communication saying that for foreseeable future, Burlington Island should not have any gas-powered mowers other than lawnmower. It goes through a litany of uses. I never heard that discussion on the island, on the board. And I sat with a gentleman who was thinking about going over there with a piece of equipment to help Don take care of some of the weeds, but guess what? It's gas powered. What I'm trying to get at is the board's got to take a wider approach than environmental. And I would suggest respectfully that your economic future is not going to be raised by a fund to go to the island and watch the mating habits of the bald eagle. You've got to come up with a way to make some money. And the safety of the island can be accomplished because it was Mr. Zalot, Jamie Zalot, myself, and Karen Robbins who overed the state to find that the city does have riparian rights there. You have the docks, the city has the docks. I would respectfully suggest, and I've been told that there are some people putting posts on the island for trails so that you'll know where the greenhead blue jays are or whatever else is going on. But the safety of the public can be better enhanced if that energy was connecting the docks to the island. That Don's already got the trail made for it. So there are many, many things that we can redirect the energy, and I think just one thing is don't leave the public out and make decisions on a presidential basis that you are in fact just going to do certain things. The other thing, there was a concern about social media. It's been said that I've been sitting out there behind the scenes of trying to admonish the board. Somebody could find something where I admonish the board, bring it to me. I want to see it. What I did suggest on social media is that the board embrace an opportunity and engage in a conversation where you can save money for an election because you don't have the money. Let me repeat, you don't have the money, you're broke. Some people feel okay with bankruptcy. I don't. I don't think this 332-year-old board is going to get to 333 if you take a bankruptcy mentality. You have to be aggressive and you have to provide a format for forecasting the future. I don't see it. I would suggest to you from this piece of communication that's been put out there about me sitting in the background, that's true. After 18 years, I'm not in a position to speak out, and you're not going to hear a diversity position there from the board. You're concerned about how things are, I'm concerned about how things are going.
I'm sorry, can you wrap up? It's over 5 minutes.
I know you must, I'm dying. You know what, I'll yield my time, and the gift that I was going to give you, I'll save for another month. Because obviously, the agenda that you have is so exciting, it's going to provide the economic boost that this board makes. And by the way, last month you started late, this month you started late. You worked for 15 minutes, you went into executive session, you came out, you took a 15-minute break. You know what, the best thing you guys can do for the board in closing, I'll save that for next week, or I'll put it on social media. After 18 years, you're hammering me? Very good.
Anyone else? You want to do that in old business, Sarah, or you doing grants, or you?
Yeah. Okay.
We'll do that in old business. Sorry. Please state your name and address, if you would, for the record.
Charles Johnston, 51 West 4th Street, Burlington, New Jersey. I'm going to try to get you back in time. How are we going to get it over there?
Worry about that when we get one.
Well, see, I only have a day or two that I can use it.
No, I'm not talking about something to use, something that's gonna be on the island and stay there.
Oh.
We need something that will go over and stay there, because we get something like Sandy again, or a good nor'easter, yeah, it washes out a lot of trail. And there's trail work that needs to be done because of Sandy. That needs to be done. And there's some other cleanup work from scrap metal that's been left by prior managers over there that I'm trying to get cleaned up and get the permits for through the state to get that cleaned up. That list, so the board can act on it in the future. Once I have those permit requirements.
Okay. Like I told you, not this weekend, but probably next weekend I'll be ready.
Appreciate any help anybody can give us.
Yeah, weed whackers, you need me to bring them?
Yeah, you can bring a line trimmer.
Okay, that'll help out probably a lot, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Anyone else in the public session?
Go ahead, Jay.
Jamie Taylor, 506 Worcester Avenue. When I came in, I had a completely different agenda to speak on. I have been researching the history of the island.
Could you speak into the microphone so I can hear what you're saying?
Sure. Forgive me if I don't sit, because after being lambasted about sitting at the table, I feel like standing up,
Okay.
especially standing up for my rights. I was lambasted for sitting at this table. There are 2 working microphones. There's a 3rd working microphone over there.
May I interrupt? That wasn't lambasting. I think you're being
That was
overly
lambasting.
dramatic. I was
Joe
being
heard
very
you across the
considerate.
room.
I was being very considerate,
And
actually,
Don?
for other people. Yeah.
Don is on the board, and he heard not a word of this, and I was told it came from the board.
No,
There are 3 working microphones, actually. I've been reading about the history of the board. You have to know where you're coming from to know where you're going. Okay? This board does not know where it's going. The board has 4 to 6 months of financial stability left. Okay? The board is not going to last. And to be arguing about petty things about where you're sitting at a board meeting when there's seats going wanting is stupid. Okay? Especially coming from the board president. And according to the charter, all the board president does is oversee the meeting. The board president does not make executive decisions. That is not the job of the board president. In fact, some of the things I've been reading would be very surprising to some of the board members. They're surprising to Dad, who's been the historian on the board. He may not be currently the historian, and some people have voted him out as the historian because they have petty personal differences against him. But he was the historian at some point. And they were surprising to him because he read it and went, I never heard that. I've seen maps that were totally surprising. So to be arguing over petty things about where somebody is sitting at a board meeting when there are 50 to 100 seats sitting here empty. And the reason they're sitting here empty is because we're arguing over stupid things about where somebody is sitting.
Okay, Jay.
These meetings go out live.
I'm not arguing, you are.
These meetings go out over the internet. When you search the island board, YouTube videos come up. So when somebody's looking up Burlington, this is the representative of our city and of our island. We have to be wary of this. This is why I started filming, because these meetings were petty. And nothing is getting done. Joe is right. Dad is right. There are no motions being made. There's no action being taken. We need to fundraise. The website doesn't have any, I'm sorry, Hal, it's not you personally, okay? But Scott doesn't have the password to the website. You couldn't access the email. That's not you. I'm not.
Okay, Jay.
It's not against you. But you don't have the password to get into the website. You need to have PayPal on there. You need to have Twitter on there. You need to be active on the web. And people will donate. But they have to see that there's something to donate to.
Okay, Jay.
Thank you.
What'd you make?
Anyone else from the public?
Here.
I just, hello? Oh, Sarah Jacob, 106 Women's Lane, Mountain. I just a general observation is that I think really everybody to stop taking everything personally. Because, Jamie, you're obviously taking it personally. And honestly, just coming in here only, I don't know, 2 years ago, I don't even know. But for months, I came in here thinking you guys were somebody, like you had a position that I didn't hold. I didn't know you were part of the public, you know? So it's very confusing. And a friend came last month, Mateo, and afterwards we went out and having a cigarette, and he said, who are they? Like, thinking you guys were someone important, you know? More important than the rest of the public, which isn't fair to the public. So I think
Actually, we are.
that's where Scott was coming from. So, I don't know. And I also wanted to say something else and I forgot. Right.
It wasn't
Anyone else?
intended towards you.
Right, that closes the public portion. Do we need a motion to go on old business? We can start on old business. Old business, Barry, to just give us an update on scholarships.
I apologize. That wasn't intended towards you. It was intended to
That
not.
one, that's the personal one from the young lady who received the scholarship.
Okay.
Here's a thank you note from one of the scholarship recipients. Dear Board of Island Managers, I'm writing to express my sincere gratitude to you for making the Board of Island Managers Scholarship possible. I was happy to learn of my selection for this honor and am deeply appreciative of your support. It will be a great help when I attend Montclair State University as a freshman in the fall of 2014. Thank you again. Sincerely, Patrice Anekwe. My only thing for scholarships right now is that we're going to have a meeting on August 7th. The committee is. And also I'd like to make a motion at this time, and that is that the Island Board stick to the processing of Island Board scholarships and not process scholarships that are being given by the private sector, by the public. If someone wants to give us money for the scholarships, it would go into the scholarship account, and it would be part of the scholarships that we give as the Island Board. So at this time, I'd like to make that motion. I guess to shorten it up, the motion would be to limit the funds we accept for scholarship contributions with no strings attached and no private designations. Is that clear? Does it make sense? Okay, that's my motion.
Second.
On the question.
Mary, can you clarify that just a little bit further? You mean like any donation would go just into the general donation fund?
Yeah, 2 years in a row, we've had, 2 years in a row, we've gotten checks. And there have been stipulations attached to these checks that they are from private individuals, that the scholarship is from private individuals, and they have to go to someone doing a specific major. And basically all the Island Board is the secretary for this donor, because they weren't donating money to the scholarship fund. They were giving us their money to process the scholarship for them with the school system. And we're not in the business of doing that. We're in the business of, we're in the business of the Island Board. Not, private secretaries or whatever. So basically that's the background. And we shouldn't be doing this anymore, in my opinion. Also, the school had mentioned concern over, whether there would be any problems with, how we're designated versus how, you know, with the intent of the person donating it. So I would like to see the board just get out of that business altogether. We're happy to accept donations, but as soon as the donation comes to the board, then it goes into the board scholarship fund, and it is just made part of one big fund, and the board will decide, you know, how it's going to be spent. Well, how it's going to be distributed.
So I recall, it's been a long time since high school, but people could set up their own scholarship.
Oh, sure.
Donate
Oh, anybody can.
for scholarship for art.
All they have to do is go to the guidance office at the high school. Yeah.
Scholarships. Okay. Anyone else?
I have a question on that. If somebody from the public wishes that their money be spent specifically on scholarship, I don't think it would be appropriate to deny them that right.
Oh, that's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. Any donation that the board gets for scholarships goes into the scholarship account. But the person donating the scholarship money to the board, for example, just this past year, I donated almost $300 to the scholarship fund. Okay, so that money goes into the scholarship account, and the board does with it what it's going to do. I have nothing to do with it once I write them the check. Okay, I'm not saying it shouldn't go to scholarships, it should. But if my sister hands me a check for $100 and says, here's a check for the Island Board for a scholarship, and I want you to give it to a music major, and it's from Tom and me in memory of my mother, then that's different. Now she's asking me to be her secretary. She's asking me to do her footwork. So, but what my sister can do is she can go to the high school, hand the high school a check for $100, and say, I would like this to go to a graduating senior majoring in music, and it's going to be in memory of so-and-so. And that's, you know, it's from that person, it's for this, and that's the proper way to do it. You know, the board, you know, don't ask the board to do your footwork for you, in other words. You know, it's...
I know that Swanus and the Lions Club and everybody do it that way. You know,
Yeah, if it's an organization, sure. You know, we've gotten several $1,000s over the years from people to go into the scholarship fund, and no one has tried to, you know, no one has asked us to make this scholarship from them. I think the highest donation we got was $750 from one person, and it was just under the understanding that it was just, you know, it goes into our fund.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Please have the record reflect Vice President Crusoe is now attending the meeting.
Thanks.
Do you want to vote on this? Did you? I'm talking about Nick.
Well, wasn't here for the discussion. Let me see if I can paraphrase. The motion on the table was from Manager Ward regarding scholarships. The motion was to limit funds for scholarship contributions to and from the island managers with no private names designated for reasons not unlike what the Kiwanis, the Elks, and the Lions Club have done for scholarships. And if
In other
someone
words,
wants to make a donation,
we won't handle a private scholarship for someone else.
they can go.
Like, you can't donate $100 and say, I want this to go to an academy, basically. Like, once you put the money in the fund, the scholarship fund, the board as a whole decides how to split it and
That's fine.
how it's gonna be distributed.
Motion passed, I really don't.
Thank you.
The motion passed.
And that's all I have.
Oh, wait, before we move away from the scholarships update, Barry, since we're gonna be meeting on the 7th, can we also just piggyback the elections on the end of that meeting, since we're both on the same committee, and have Murray come for the second half so we can get a jump start on the elections this year? Because there's some things that we have to start looking at for the elections.
Okay.
I just wanted to see if we could just do one after the other, since we're meeting on the 7th, and we're on the same committee.
I guess.
Yeah,
Which seven?
yeah.
Where?
In my house. Oh, we can do it at the end? We'll go to the end.
Okay, that's fine. Kill two birds with one stone.
Are we still under old business?
Yeah, we are. I was gonna have, Ms. Jacobs come up, to talk about, the grant, but do you have something, Hal, you wanna discuss?
No, Ms. Jacob first.
I'm just gonna give a short summary of where we're standing.
Sarah, would you put the microphone closer to your mouth, please?
Sorry,
Is the red
hello?
light on? It's on.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, you can move that, you know, there you go.
Nice haircut. Okay, so, right now, the status of the grants is, well, we find out about the SARE grant, which is the Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education grant that I applied for in June. That was for, sorry, $78,500. We find out tomorrow, so keep your fingers crossed, please.
What is that for, Sarah? Is there a specification on that? That has to be used?
Yes, it's, sorry, I have so many notes. It's, the project title that I proposed was the establishment of a new permaculture farm on Burlington Island, New Jersey, in an effort to improve the quality of life of Burlington City's youth. And I gave you a copy. I don't know if you guys made copies for everybody, but this
I didn't see it, could I just show
Sure.
you like that? Yeah.
It's a very funny format because it's their format. So
That's fine.
literally you can go a word over or they'll cut you off. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean?
I'll just skim it real quick.
So, sorry, we find out about that tomorrow. And then I met with Anne-Marie today of Art Pride New Jersey, and I was under the wrong impression that they actually had grant allocations, but they don't have any money. But actually, it was good to brainstorm about it with her, because she had some very good suggestions. For example, with the scrap metal, making sculptures out there. And I think we've all thrown that idea around, but she had really good ideas of actually who to go to get the money for those grants. And then there's one other one, which I don't want to jinx right now, so I'm not going to tell you about, but it's Perfect Fit. Or maybe, do you have to vote on it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, it's the William Penn Foundation, which is pretty much completed, although we need an audit before I can send that one off. The beauty about this grant is that the William Penn grants are aimed at specifically closing the achievement gap, disadvantaged youth, which Burlington City unfortunately falls into that group. And as well as do you want to know the title of that too? Sorry, I had it all in front of me and then I got flustered. Oh, sure.
That's okay, William Penn grant is good enough.
Okay. I don't actually have, I don't know. But it focuses on education, environment, and cultural vitality to help close the achievement gap for economically disadvantaged children. And it's a, they're, I don't, maybe I need to learn more about William Penn because it's with the bottom line goal being to enhance the cultural and creative assets, which include, it actually says in their criteria, they want to help expand nature trails, and their wording was they want to inspire children to be environmental stewards. So I thought, wow, that's perfect. So again, that application is complete, but I can't submit it until I have the last year's fiscal audit and this year's, if there is one, that's not mandatory, but last year's is, and a copy of some other tax document. I passed on to the treasurer. So thank you.
Sarah, I have a question for you. Hold on, I'm writing a word. About every 3 or 4 weeks, I go online and I look, what I'm looking for is a grant that basically we can have free and clear to do with what we need to do. In other words, for our general account, and I can't find any such animal. Have you come across anything like that?
No, I haven't. But honestly, this William Penn grant, oh, you mean for like?
To put in our
Yeah.
general fund, yeah.
I don't.
I mean, I've been looking for probably a year and a half, 2 years. I go online. That's specifically what I'm looking for. You know,
Like
because
you can pay your insurance with them or something?
stuff like that, yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, I haven't found anything, you know, and as I said, I've been looking for a long time.
A lot of the grants I've looked at, by the way, are the board has to be able to match the donation.
I know.
So
That's a big
ruled out
problem.
Green Acres, it ruled out a couple other ones.
Wait a minute, Green Acres, some of the Green Acres through New Jersey Trails, it's a matching donation with the possibility, you can do volunteer time.
What do you mean,
Like
work in lieu of money, how?
In lieu of money, volunteer time.
Oh,
That was New Jersey Trails. That would come up from next year.
Okay, thank you.
That's federally funded.
Sarah, do you think if we asked a business in town to match like a car dealership or something, would that help? I mean, if they committed to matching some grant monies, do you think?
Sure, that would help, but it wouldn't help in applying for the grants that you specifically need the money before you apply to match them.
yeah, that's what I
Letter
found.
of intent or something.
You could try it, and
Do we need a motion on the Williams Penn grant then?
We need to get the audit.
All right, but is it open-ended, Sarah, or is there a timeline on it?
well, that's one beauty about the William Penn, that it's a rolling grant, so there's no deadline.
All right, very good.
Sooner the better.
I have a question. Is it possible that there are administration grants by companies or businesses that are in the administration business? They may possibly have grants
Well, that's a good idea, no, I haven't
to
looked
go
at
in that direction,
Yeah.
because, you know, in other words, if it's the typical paper trail thing,
Right.
it's a little bit different than dirt trails.
I'm sure
And
there
they
is.
may have grants
yeah.
that are for, you know, for the purpose of financing or
Yeah.
bookwork or administration. They may have grants that are available to go in that direction.
Have you ever seen any of those, Mary?
I haven't.
I've never searched anything. I mean, I looked for grants before, but I've never gone off on a specific thing in that direction. Because it seems like everybody that has a profitable business has grants of some sort.
Yeah.
But it only pertains to them. In other words, you know, if it's farming, well, it has to do with farming. Well, then, if that's the case, we're looking for overhead grants.
Right. No, that's a good
Well, there must be
overhead
something that has
grants.
overhead grants.
You can Google that.
I hadn't thought of overhead
Yeah,
grants.
That's a good term.
You know,
Yeah, that is a
they're
good
in the
term.
banking industry.
Oh, that's great. And also, by the way, just a side note, I haven't heard back from Bruce Springsteen, Bon Jovi, or Mrs. Obama yet.
I wrote to them about, when I send out letters soliciting donations for scholarships, and I never heard from any of them either. It was Springsteen, Bon Jovi, there was somebody else in New Jersey. But, oh, and also, Oprah.
Oprah.
You might,
Yeah, but I never heard from any of them.
you might want to try going through Dr. Lou down in Roebling, because Dr. Lou is in the lounge and music industry, and he probably has connections, and he did volunteer his time when we did the Don't Dump on Me Drinks thing. He was the band that played on his group, so you might want to get a hold of Dr. Lou, because he might know Joe Piscopo and people like
Yeah,
that.
I know who. I know who he is.
Check with Dr. Lou.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Manager Sunstein, or Treasurer Sunstein, I know we talked about this, we just, it was noted that we need the fiscal audits in order to finish the William Penn grant, I know you're on it. Okay.
I have to call my accountant and screw over for a year before it's paid.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
under old business, we do have Scoop Night coming up August 13th. I'm waiting on the JPEG so I can send it out to social media and so forth. How many times you will be contacted tomorrow for a free slot, same way with Channel 28.
Is that the one that has the marquee along the bottom?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to have to do the 501c nonprofit status paper from the treasurer as proof. For nonprofit status. I'm also bringing up the United Boat Club does host through their building wine and cheeses and other benefits. I have 3 contacts, 3 officers. I need a letter from this organization requesting a date. So I can set that up for a wine and cheese.
So why don't you make that a motion before the board so you can go ahead and do that?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion for a letter for contact of United Boat Club for hosting an event, wine and cheese event.
Second.
That's to a Night Boat Club?
Yes.
Requesting a wine and cheese fundraising event?
Yes. They have their liquor license, and I do believe they have a sponsor, 50/50. I'm not exactly sure. Please don't quote me, anybody quote me on that, but I have to ask about that. I was giving a list, a very prominent list of business owners throughout the tri-state area, and doctors and lawyers. They're going to be the main target.
Okay, on the question?
For the wine and cheese, what would the obligation be on our part? Usually when they do these fundraisers, what's expected of the organization?
I had to work those details out.
Okay.
Both clubs. I
I'm
had to
just
have that
curious.
letter to go any further.
Gotcha, okay.
That's my door knock.
Gotcha.
Okay, under old business again, sorry.
Wait a minute, we have to vote.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, Hal?
Okay, under old business again, sorry, I'm on a roll here. I've been tracking 3 very specific items on the island. They are worth money on our side. There's 2 opportunities. One, I have to publicly sell these items or go to a collector. I just want input right now which way to go.
Well, again, we have to decide that.
Yeah.
And that's close, we have to go into closed session about that
Yeah.
because.
Think about this for next month, ask me a couple of questions tonight. Think about it so we can have it on next month's agenda. Also, under old business again, there is one contact out of 3 countries. I even sent an email to China at Grover. I know these are not indigenous and invasive species, the plumia trees to this state. They are commercially grown in China, Australia, New Zealand, and also here in the States. There may be one possible grower in Texas because of the drought. He has no supplies. I'd like to make a motion for a letter. I don't have my notes with me. I'll give it, whoever's going to be writing the letter, contact. Formal contact. What we have.
To talk to him about selling him the plumia trees?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not going to get much.
So can you find out who he is and get his
Yeah,
address and everything?
Yeah, I have all that information. I don't have all my notes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of a letter of interest.
Yes.
Would you like me to write it for them?
Yes.
That's true, the motion's been made. Have we seconded?
One second.
All in favor? Question? All in favor?
Mary will write the letter, correct, Mayor?
Yeah.
We'll have that ready for, I
Get
guess,
me-
next month.
Yeah, get me all the information I need. See me right after the meeting, I'll give you my phone number.
Okay.
All right, under new business, Tony, actually, are in the audience. You want to,
Sure.
math program at the high school?
Okay. So I know of one teacher, Mrs. Margaretta. She teaches 8th grade math. I'm not sure which subject. She is having her students do a project. And you can either make a hand-drawn map of the island, and it must be made to scale, including a compass, pointing out landmarks such as the lake, the rope swing, Bristol side, Burlington side, although that doesn't have to be as detailed, including latitude, longitude, and also a poster. Well, this is actually a bonus poster that this student's doing, but with bullet points with island history, a little bit of information about the island board, current activities that we are doing. Nicole had interviewed me last week, asking questions about my opinion of which should be on the island, a little bit about the island history, what we're doing currently, what the board is, and I invited her and her mentor Julia to our meeting to observe, to see what it is that we do and what we're talking about, and I was hoping that all the other board members would like to add something that she could include on her projects, something, you know, that you do on the island, something that you would like to see done, a fun historical fact, anything you want to add.
What do you want to do, go down, just down the aisle?
Yeah, we'll start on one end and then just go down. I mean, I already had my fun, so I figured I'd let everybody else take part.
So your name is Mikkel? Mikella?
Nicole. Yes.
Hi. You know, one thing you might want to do is get down to Seaside Park and take photographs of the carousel at Casino Pier. There are 2 carousels down there on each end of the boardwalk. This would be, I believe, on the north end, and it's a Casino Pier. That carousel was on Burlington Island as part of the amusement park right after the turn of the 20th century. So the carousel's up for sale now, as we were saying earlier. And so it might not be around a whole lot longer. We're trying to raise money. Well, there's a student trying to raise money to buy it. Personally, I would like to see, you probably haven't been to Winterthur down in Delaware, but it's kind of like the naturalized version of Longwood Gardens. It's not a formal garden, it's a naturalized thing. It's really beautiful there. And that's what I would like to see go in there.
Yeah, basically I don't know what you do know and what you don't know, but the island is the oldest educational trust in the country. And it was landed on, I believe, 1823 is the proper year, and it was by the Walloon. 1623. Yeah, not when I was born. And then the English came in 16 something or other. Yeah, where's this start? When did the English come?
The English came in 1677.
That's what I thought. So why we got 1682?
The Walloons in 1624.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So the Walloons came, what, 1623? 24? I missed it by a year. So I was right. And, well, the 18 part, yeah. What's interesting, there was a tour with some school children that had been touring the city, and they had been in the inn. And one of the facts about the island came up was that the first murder in New Jersey took place on the island. And some little kid went, geez, but it always has to happen here. So that's kind of interesting. There's so much to the island. There was an amusement park on the island in the 20s and in the 30s. Both of them burnt down, and as Mary said, the carousel that was on the island came from there. The lake at one point used to be a gravel pit, and when they dredged the island, it was closed off and created a 100-acre lake, which is fed by the aquifer, 1 trillion gallons of water. So it's a freshwater lake, and if you do go around that lake, you would think you're in Vermont or someplace up in New England. It's just magnificent. In the fall, it's magnificent. The flora, the fauna, the island's an extraordinary place. It's a one-of-a-kind thing. I know that we have been trying to work something out to make it go. There has been changes in the charter, which does not allow commercial building on the island. And that, to some degree, has hampered and probably will hamper any real ability to make any large money from the island itself. I won't just exclude that it won't happen, but you might have to go back and change the charter and all of that. The one thing that's kind of interesting, in the city, there's a group that's doing a study on the waterfront to change the waterfront in Burlington City. And they're world-famous individuals. They did the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. They did the Inner Harbor in Annapolis. They did the Washington Monument. They did the museum, the Art Museum in Philadelphia. Anyway, Independence Mall, not Mall, Independence Mall. And the individual who headed up Olin was standing out by the river, and has been passed on to me for somebody who was with him and knows him, that the guy could not take his eyes off the island. And I really suspect that once the waterfront gets moving in this town, Burlington is, I think, in my opinion, a fuse has been lit, and I think Burlington is ready to take off like a rocket. And if that happens, the island, as has been said by probably anybody who's been on this board, anybody sitting on this board, will tell you that the island will become the star of this city. It's an extraordinary place, and it deserves its place in this city. That's basically what I have to say about it for now.
Nikhil, have you ever been on the island? Oh, good, okay.
That was a yes? Yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'd be glad to get you out there any other time, or any students students out there. You know, I think everyone on both sides of this dais really would like to see more students and youth out there. After all, that's what the charter is about, the education and furthering of the children of Burlington in their education. And there's an awful lot to see. I hope you saw the Eagles and the bald Eagles, not the football team, and the Ospreys who are quite prevalent there right now. And occasionally daytime hornbill pops up as well. I'm going to keep it brief, Nicole. If you would, as I say, anything, you know, if you want to get out there or whatever, I believe you have my number. I have canoes. Sarah is our grant writer. She's also quite an avid kayaker and canoer. We'd be glad to take you out anytime and show you around. We have plenty of life jackets. And it's very safe. Very safe.
I'll just look at it from the development standpoint. Being the board's fiduciary responsibility is to generate income that goes towards education. Somehow, some way, we have to develop the island at a little bit of a larger scale than probably most people would want to see. We think Don has a pretty good idea here with Big. I don't know whether he has shared this with you. If you don't, I would be looking something multi-purpose, because it has to be year-round to draw any kind of money. So you can't just do an activity that's a summer activity, like an amusement park. It would have to be water park, and maybe some schooling for agriculture, different types of things. It would have to be multi-purpose. And if she takes a look at that, that's a pretty good thing there, that Don has. And that's about all I have. Development-wise is where we got to head. I mean, one way or the other. The only way to generate big-time income is to develop it. We're limited, but there are ways around it.
Ladies, if for GPS coordinates for anything, I'm under Hal James on the website. I pretty much have a good portion of it now back. If you have any questions about physically about that island, about one of the best ones that you can contact that's physically there.
Julie, would she have to do all that longitude and latitude on her own, or can she go through Hal? Because he has a lot of that information.
Well, yeah, we just need resources to help us do things. So anything that can help us put this together is good.
Well, I'm off next week. If you want, we can maybe get together for lunch or dinner. And if I'm not mistaken, you're actually making a map of the island too.
It's pretty much.
When you're done, is it possible to get her a copy to kind of see how it?
It won't be done until about next year.
That's okay. We'll keep her in mind just to see how it, you know.
Okay. Because right now, we only have, out on the trails, out of roughly 2 miles of trails, we only have 15 markers out. Physical markers, posts going in, that's actually in. Hopefully, I got a couple of volunteers showing up this coming Saturday. I just picked up 10 more posts, and the trailheads are laid, areas for the trailheads are laid out. The trails are actually GPS'd and marked. That's the only thing I actually physically have right now.
Okay.
That's permanent. Is the actual trails, the 2 miles of trail.
Okay.
There are maps. Dr. Bisbee, he did a book on the maps of Burlington Island and Burlington City, and I believe there are copies at the library.
What's his name?
It's Dr. Bisbee.
He also did a history of the island.
Somewhere we got some.
Yeah. And
If you want to stop by the inn, I may have some stuff, and you can probably Google it and give you all the
Yeah.
coordinates.
Yeah, you can get all that stuff online.
There's sorry.
Dr. Bisbee stuff.
There's one more great resource of the New Jersey State Library Division of Archives. I can never say his name right. It's Dr. Vitt or Bite. Okay, he actually has the inventory for what was dug from Dr. Charles Abbott. Okay, and his diggings in the local area that pertains to the island. and they have maps that are unbelievable.
Interesting facts about the island. When the amusement park, before the amusement park was allowed to be established over there approximately 1905, they had to do an archaeological dig on the island, and college students came down from Harvard University in Peabody, and they scoured the whole island, which at that time was all farm fields, and they found over 15,000 artifacts on the island, which are now housed in the Peabody Museum and in Harvard University Museum. They are ours to have, but we don't have a safe place to put them. But they said we can have them as soon as we get a safe place to put them. But there are coins, Indian bracelets, all that kind of good stuff, and they are available. If you're looking at portfolio there actually there is one picture of the Indian bracelet that was very prominent that they had actually found. We witnessed that approximately 3 years ago up at Harvard. We're in a fine situation, actually, the way the island is set up. It's divided in half, and 50% of the island, everything around the lake, Hal and I established trails all the way around the lake. We originally had about 3 miles of trails. We've cut them down now to about 2 miles. And the only reason being is we don't like to maintain the trail that goes near the eagle's nest because we don't want nobody to bother them. So we've narrowed our trails down to the size. The reason we're posting the trails every 200 feet is for the mayor has he wants safety reasons, that if somebody falls down in there, they can't get up, they can't find them over there. So that's why we're producing a map that's going to benefit a quick and easy rescue. And that's one of the reasons we're doing it. One of the reasons that we're in a good situation with the island is the charter for basically the island is for education, recreation, and conservation. That's the board's idea of the charter. Since we have to share half the island with the Green Acres Commission, the Green Acres Commission is conservation, education, and recreation. So it's the same thing, but on the Green Acres side, they can't generate a revenue. On our side, we can generate a revenue as long as it's for the education of the school children. So between the two, it's a great setup. You know, it's a wonderful way. There was never any lake in the island. The interesting thing about the lake is that the lake in the island is considered the largest lake in the middle of an island, in the middle of a river in the United States. Which is really weird, you know what I mean? Because most people don't have one of those. And that's just the way it's set up over there. We have at least two generations of nesting eagles over there now. And if you go over to Bristol and you go into the King George Inn in the wintertime, and you go where the glass enclosure is to eat lunch or anything, if you look over at the island, you can see the eagle's nest. It's about 6 feet in diameter in a big tree over there. But, you know, you're welcome to visit over there if you need any help getting over there, or like Scott said, if you want to take a few students over there at the same time, we'll gladly be willing to help you over there.
Thank you.
Thank you, and they have my contact info. If they have any more questions or need any more information, I'll definitely reach out and see what else we can come up with. And I'd actually like permission to contact the teacher to maybe encourage her to, maybe for the next time she does this project, maybe try to send the students to one of the meetings, because I think it would be a benefit for them to come and see what we do and to ask the same questions. And it's disappointing, out of at least 30 students, we've only heard from one. And I mean, this is Burlington, everybody knows everybody, so I'm sure the students, their parents knew one of us or know of us who have reached out and asked questions. And I actually only heard from 2 students, and one could not make it tonight.
I would like to see through the school, you might want to introduce it to the school, is that I would like to see a group of students start an environmental committee and use Burlington Island as the main focal point.
Well, with permission, like I said, I'd like to reach out to this particular teacher and see if I can't get something started. If no one has any objections to that, I don't know if I need a motion.
All right, I move to give Tony permission to you know, be in contact with the teachers and,
Right now, it's only exploratory anyway.
right.
I'll second the motion.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Sunstein has an update on the insurance.
Yeah, Joe, this is Commissioner Bate. Hey, Joe?
Yes.
You had requested, I had responded to the date for the insurances.
Yes.
The inception of the new policy was 6/4, so we have a year.
Real?
He said something wrong.
Oh, okay. So we got a full year, they didn't retroact. Okay. So I'm about to go with that. Because that's what I was worried about, them going back to the original date, because they wanted a letter saying there was no losses incurred in the time that the policy was lapsed. Okay, 6/4 of this year till 6/4 next year. I'm good with that.
As discussed in prior meetings, talked to David Ballard and Frank Caruso, the head of OEM, regarding access to the island and possible kayak tours and/or tours on the island. While we don't, if we have kayak lessons and tours around the island, we don't need these requirements. The requirements were made by the administration to have a certified emergency EMS worker and a power boat. And so the gentleman who is willing to do the kayak tours and help us along here is acquiring a motor for a canoe. It's actually could be a motorized canoe, and we need to solicit volunteers to go out when we take kids out formally, as far as large groups or groups from outside. So it's really
With an AED. With what? With full bag and AED.
So, you know, they can be expensive, but, yes.
This is
Basically, if your heart stops, they gotta have a machine to start.
Who's gonna be doing this tour?
Well, his name
The
is.
reason I bring it up, is that, if we wanna make any, if we can make any money out of it, make sure it's a donation, number one.
Right.
And we don't have those equal, because that's what you gotta worry about. You got liability problems involved.
Yep. Absolutely, it would be a donation, and his name is Brian of Green Wave Paddling.
I just wanna make you aware, and I'm sure you are anyway.
Yeah. So, that's a good point. Not just for liability purposes, nothing else. Yeah.
And who's gonna be going on these tours? Is it gonna be like school-age children, or does anybody?
Could be families, could be people that don't have kayaks but are interested in kayaking, people that don't have canoes but are interested in canoeing, and or,
I'm just curious,
yeah.
because if we can do something like this and it's successful, you know, maybe it would be another thing to reach out to the school and see if maybe they would be interested in doing like a field trip. And you know, I mean, it would still have to be donation, obviously, but, you know, the teacher could come up with a fair donation for a student maybe, or I don't know if you were thinking that large scale, but I think going on the island would be an excellent field trip.
Yeah.
With all the history and natural beauty over there, I think it would be really nice if, you know, we can make it happen.
I've had some experience trying to do that for the island, back a couple of years ago at Mulher from across the Bristol. We did get down basically to the situation where we needed EMTs and, I don't know, they wanted an aircraft carrier out there in case somebody got sick.
Excuse me, motion to extend this, current business?
I think we still have more to go.
Only a business at hand, because we are still on.
We have a second.
I'll second.
Motion to extend, how many minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
Just to finish my statement with that.
We gotta finish the motion.
Let's say 15. Can you change that to 15, Mr. James?
Yes, I'll amend the motion, original motion to 15 minutes. And I'll amend the second.
Any question?
Any question? All in favor? Continue, Murph.
All right, it's just, the problem is liability, basically. If we want to make money, which I think would be the hopeful thing, especially since I'm treasurer, it would have to be donations, and that, even that, you've got to be very concerned about the liability. It can be done, if you can get the EMT and the boats that are out there. I think it's an extraordinary situation. I think it can be done. I tried it once before. Mr. Mullen got fed up with the city, and he's now got a very large situation going up in the Pennsylvania side with something like 150 kids and all kinds of things going on. So we could have had it, but we don't.
Just remember one thing, Mary, we do have that rider still on our policy, so if it's a board sanctioned event, we're covered.
No,
If it's a board sanctioned event, we're covered.
I have no problem with what you're saying today, but I would venture to tell you or to advise that we make sure that we're covered from front to back
Yeah.
and all around.
Any board sanctioned event.
I think one of the things that we should seriously look into, besides the city school, we may want to try to include the Nose Academy in there. Because they have all the canoes, they can dine to get on the island.
Absolutely, I agree.
And I think that we should personally put out, but something is sort of assembled and some ideas on this, to send a letter over to the headmaster over there and say that we're looking for any ideas what they would like to submit in. And then we can move forward with it that way, because fortunately, they're pretty much set up for visiting the island.
That'll have to be a follow-up done, because we did have a meeting with the Academy and sat with him. His concern is he doesn't want to get involved in politics with people.
Well, we're slowly moving forward, because the island has been opened up to the extent that theoretically we had a successful footprint on the island from the last event. So now we could move to another event, which would be something that could be a little smaller.
No, I totally agree with you, and they want to get on the big time.
And that's, getting them involved in it would be good, because they're a prominent name in the city.
I think you could get volunteers too, Don, because they do have the crew teams and other things that go around the island already. And you have a lot of youth there and their parents and whatnot.
Yes.
Do we need a motion to continue the dialogue with Doan? I know John McGee personally. I know Murray handles a lot of their people staying at the inn. I don't know if we need a motion for that. I'm asking now, since people are calling me to ask on the
I think right now it's just feelers that we're putting out. I don't think you need a motion for a feeler. Right now we're just fishing.
You got some prerogatives.
Well, I don't know, that was brought up earlier, apparently you don't.
Before we close, I'd like to make a motion that we purchase the no trespassing signs, so that they can, and I don't know how much they cost right now, so I'm going to make a motion that we purchase the signs and have whoever's going to purchase them get together with the treasurer, so that we can have these posted by early August.
What signs you told me?
No trespassing signs on the island, because of that big party thing that they were gonna do.
How many signs do you want to put up?
What do you think, Don? And
Problem is, we're only allowed to post our side of the island.
How many signs now?
No, what we had before, how about 20?
More than that.
Basically, I need 150 signs.
Yeah. So if you're gonna go around.
What do you?
I gotta go all around, I gotta go all three sides of the island
And so,
of our property.
They're
150
cheap.
per
They're
minute.
like $40 for a roll of 100.
okay.
We're talking the paper room?
No,
They're plastic.
Semi-vinyl.
So I don't have to make a motion, but you want to give the treasurer permission to spend up to X amount of dollars for these signs?
I would say spend up to,
Start with a roll of 100.
$100.
Start with a roll of 100, they're like $40 for a roll of 100.
Well, I need a number, you gave me a number.
I'd say go to 100.
You guys could have put them in.
I would say go up to 150.
I guess they
Yeah,
were
that's
going,
fair.
I've been posting the past couple of years anyway.
Why don't we find out about contacting Home Depot and Lowe's and see if they'll just donate the signs
Well,
to
that
start
would
with?
be great, yeah.
I don't think they have them signs.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they have the better The big ones. roll? No, they have, Yellow ones? no, they actually have the better ones. In order for you to to go to Home Depot, you need
Letterhead.
your letterhead, specific item, your SKU number, and a thank you letter. And what they usually do is, I would do this quick, because usually at the end of the month, to nonprofits, they give you gift cards. Or they just go in off the shelf from the manager. If the manager's present, they go in off the shelf and hand it to you. As long as you have your paperwork in order.
Since we're short on time, Don, you want to look into the donation process and we can just have a motion for up to $100?
Yeah, I'll check on it.
If we need to.
I'll
Alright,
contact
well,
them.
how about I make a motion for, Murray to spend up to 150 on signs and for Don to first attempt to get them donated from Lowe's and or Home Depot. Second that?
Second.
Any question? All in favor?
Aye.
John,
Opposed.
you wanted to
One
talk
opposed,
about,
me.
are you? Don, you wanted to talk about the status of the old carousel for sale.
Yeah, I handed out to everybody on the board, basically, I took it out of the newspaper just the other day, Burlington County Times had it on 2 pages. What I did was I condensed it into 1 page so that it's all readable right in front of you. But it also has on there the GoFundMe site that young Connors, Newman over at Jones Academy, he's 15. He set up the program, and the GoFundMe site, you can donate any amount that you want. And I'm proud to say that I'm the first one to donate to it, and I'm the first one that donated $100 too. So I like to see everybody else step up and do something. But I also sent them out here for the people in the public if they want to check on it. It would be a worthwhile endeavor if we could get that moved back to Burlington City, because that was the heart basically of Burlington Island. And it's one of those old friends where it's like a cat with 9 lives. It survived so many fires, so many hurricanes down the shore, and the thing still functions and actually still does work. And I think about a year or so ago, when Hurricane Sandy, or when the Superstorm Sandy came through, Mike Zalon had contacted them and wanted to know if there's any pieces left to it, because we'd like to purchase them if we could. And they were basically kind of surprised that he asked that question, because they said, well, there's nothing wrong with it. A few light bulbs blew out, but it's still sitting here and looks fine, and it works great. So we were kind of surprised that it didn't fall in the ocean with everything else. But now it's going to go up for auction, but it won't be going up until the end of, they said in late fall is what they're talking about. And the people who own it right now would prefer to sell it as an entire unit, so it could be kept up running just as it is for people to enjoy. So it would be a wonderful addition to have that down at the waterfront. It would be spectacular.
You also wanted to talk about dockage and community service. Did anybody else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing to the carousel. I do know the reason why they're selling it. That's because it costs $150,000 a year to operate and maintain, and they're not drawing that kind of money. That's a fact. To take that to the bank. $150 grand a year to operate and maintain. And that's why they decided to sell it. Because since the hurricane, the shore business is not what it was. And that's it's just been hurt. So that is the deciding factor in why they're selling it. So if that does come to Burlington, somehow, some way, which I would love to see it come, I'm not against it, but it will take $150,000 a year to operate and maintain.
Well, and before that, it's gonna cost $500,000 to $1 million to
Yeah.
$1 million to build an enclosure for it. probably.
That thing is
to a million or
immaculate.
more.
I've actually seen it, and my granddaughter rode on it, and that thing is in immaculate condition.
Well, she had her birthday party in the building where it's housed, and we went,
I mean, that thing, I don't know if anybody from the board has actually been up close and personal.
Oh, I've
That
ridden
thing
on it
is
like countless
immaculate. I
times.
mean, the thing shines.
One thing we must remember is that the Olin Group is interested in redoing the waterfront. They want to do landscaping, they want to make it look nice. That would be a perfect centerpiece for what they want to do.
would they be able to purchase it? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what kind of money they
I would think I wouldn't be surprised.
They don't buy stuff.
I would think for historical value and either for preservation, it might be possible we can get a grant or something like that, you know? I mean, you have to realize, because the way that people are talking who own it, you know, they were saying, well, if worse comes to worse, we'll just sell it in pieces. But that's the last thing that they.
I don't think they'll sell them pieces. And you know, the people.
And you gotta realize that Burlington Island was its home. That it was built specifically for Burlington Island.
People in Seaside are literally protesting on the pier.
Sure, I know,
That there.
yeah.
But the people that own it have made a business decision, it's gone.
Yep.
They are gonna sell it. It's that simple.
Well, they took a heck of a beating down there, because half of the pier fell into the river, and the other half of the boardwalk burned down.
They lost one ride.
Sure.
It was like, how much was that?
Roller coaster.
Oh, gosh, they're a couple million easy.
Just that one ride. I mean, they lost most of the pier.
Yeah, they lost at least half of the rides on the pier. I mean, that's.
The thing that saved the carousel is it's inland.
The thing is,
It's inland.
you gotta realize
Yeah,
that.
it's not on that.
Everything
pier.
outside on the pier was gone. That was in. That's why
Well, I had 20 more feet to go, because I saw the aerial photo.
it survived the fire last year.
But you gotta remember that having it down the shore, the cost down having it down the shore, is 10 times higher than what it would be if we had it down at the riverfront.
Now, maintenance and operation.
I understand that.
The maintenance and
I understand
operation.
it. We can put a gazebo over just like storage root there, it folds up the same way.
We're running out of time. Thank you.
Move to close.
We have a motion to close.
Second.
Question, I wanted to make a motion for Don to be able to continue with the community service program.
I'll
We skipped
second
over
that.
that.
Well, can we just ask for an extension of 9/25?
Not under Robert's Rules of Order. We can do this in less than 3 minutes. Make a motion.
I make a motion that authorize Manager Reinhardt to reconnect with community service for the purpose of finishing the docks that were started and not completed.
I'll second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Yeah, sure. Okay, so we had a motion for Don to continue, and to connect with the community service program to finish the docks. And one opposed. And, we had a motion to close.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.